Now, when it comes to Drake, I have been waiting for this one. And before we get into what is the worst news we have ever found out about this guy, and that is saying so much if you are ready to see what is going to be the ultimate moment that is going to solidify the end of the most pathetic person we have ever seen. Even try to cosplay hip-hop. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe so now everyone can see how Lubre is trying to censor the release of rap music as a whole. And now, with that said, when it comes to Drake with the news that has just come out about the guy, all due to Pusha T and his team coming out to talk about their experience in the industry over the past few years and what it has taken to get the new Clips album to even be near a point where the full body of work can even be heard. Well, with what has been revealed about these stories and specifically how Drake has tried to sabotage the release of this album, and so many other things that Pusha T has done well this time around, what Drake is doing is not just pathetic, humiliating, and shameful like everything else he has ever done since the beef. But really, with what we have heard now, it's truly disgusting and repulsive. And for someone to even consider doing what Drake has for years at this point, well, I don't care what else you have done and what genre of music you have tried to make for over a decade at this point, you can't be considered hip-hop for this and now. Really, as the entire music industry now has to face the reality that the guy who has tried to act like the biggest victim of it is really the most evil and disgusting person within it today, it is not looking good for Drake, and things are really about to get worse than we have ever expected. And now, before we go any further into how horrible all of this really is, if you have not already, be sure to leave a like and subscribe because it helps me out a ton. And again, this entire thing that Drake was just caught doing may be the worst thing we have seen in hip-hop history, and it's really going to have the biggest effects on the future of the genre than anything else we have seen in quite a while. Make sure to leave that like and subscribe so everyone knows why Drake needs to be stopped and why, if you are pro-hip-hop, you have to be anti-Drake. And now, with that said, say it with me, this time when it comes to Drake. Well, at this point, Drake has never upheld the title of being called Lobry Moore because really, with everything that has been revealed as we are finding out the truth about what Drake has been doing to Pusha T behind the scenes for years. And to be honest, who knows who else we are discovering more than ever that when it comes to Drake and his suit and everything he is trying to claim about not like us. Well, we are seeing more than ever that with Drake and these beyond petty moves and paperwork, they are so obviously not there to do anything else other than to try and spite artistic expression that is from his rivals, all in a last-effort resort, to pretty much up and tell them that since they defeated him, there has been a rap beef, and there is nothing else he could have done on the mic against them, that he is going to pull out the most extra and ridiculous ways to try and get any sort of win or move to work in his favor, even if it ends up having big implications on how the future of the entire field that you occupy can move going forward. And now with Pusha T, with the extent that we are finding out how much Drake has tried to censor Pusha T's music ever since the story of Adden and Push, exposing Drake with one of the best diss tracks of all time, well, already. And again, we can say, and what the disturbing part about all of this is that we are just finding out about the surface of all of this, which is that Drake has not just been suppressing Push's music, but he has been willing to do it at any cost because with what Push's manager Steven Victor ended up revealing in a new interview with Billboard, really may be the most shocking and disgusting thing we have ever heard about Drake yet, as when it came to Pusha T and the guest verse he was supposed to have on the Pop Smoke record shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, and the track Paranoia specifically. Well, what we found out is that if Push was not removed from the album and the song as a whole, the whole record was going to get shield all because UMG and the labels around it did not want to make Drake angry, as this was all based on his request to make sure that nothing that even was remotely close to a diss about him was released by Push. And to be honest, since the Push and Drake beef happened, things are starting to make a lot of sense now, because even when it comes to how Drake was so confidently dissing Push on tracks well after their beef, with the two most prominent songs we saw when he was doing this being Jack Harlow's Churchill Downs and then Travis Scott's Meltdown, where he dissed both him and Pharrell. Now we can see that Drake was trying to diss Pusha T there and act all tough because he knew that because of the precedent that he set and what he was doing with the industry behind him. No matter what Drake said, Push was literally not going to be able to put back out any distance, which is just surreal to actually find out, and it just shows that Drake is the most soft and pathetic figure in hip-hop, and it's not even remotely close. And now, again with this entire Pop M Smoke incident, with the label almost dropping the entire album because of the words of Push A on it. Well, what I find most shocking about this whole thing is that we are literally seeing that Drake has had so much control within the music industry to suppress and censor anything in hip-hop that he wants. That literally the biggest album of that moment in Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Mood, and one of the biggest records in the entire streaming era did not come out all because of how petty Drake was about a single verse from a guy he didn't like, and with this, I don't know how else to say it. It's genuinely disturbing to see how Drake has been aware of this and has still tried to deceive the public and act like he's all Mr. Hip-Hop, because no matter how you want to frame it, this is simply the most anti-hip-hop thing anyone has ever done. Because to take away the ability for another rapper to tell their truth just because you are mad that you lost a beef, and then also because of Drake the industry gained more of a say than ever on the stories and verses that rappers can tell and craft as a whole. I mean, the guy has clearly set hip-hop back so much, and what is clear is that Drake is the industry puppet that he has wanted so many other people to believe that Kendrick Lamar was all along. And now when we look at every Drake album for that matter recently and see how he has kept dissing more and more people, well, what is really also becoming clear about this the more we understand this idea that Drake has been suppressing verses from one artist, as once again with Pusha T, even on Rick Ross's album Port of Miami 2, Drake had him pushed off the track, with Lil Wayne and Rick Ross's Maybach Music 6 there, all due to his own pettiness. What we are seeing in the bigger picture is that Drake has been protected by the industry and pretty much put in a place where they made sure that he can throw out all of the disses he wants at literally anybody, and clearly for so many of these rappers, they could literally not do a thing about it, because they were literally not allowed to make verses that were going to go against him. And this is disgusting, and there is no other way to put that, and really, to be honest, maybe this is why after Kendrick was finally able to say something and start a full-on beef with Drake, everybody else quickly followed because maybe they have all been waiting for so long just to speak out against the guy who was holding back entire albums from releasing, due to just the idea that he may not like it, and a guy who he wasn't friends with was saying something that was a little mean, and again, it took Pusha a seven-figure deal to get out of the situation that Drake and the precedent that he set was holding him in, and one of the most anticipated rap records of the year. I don't think we even understand half the magnitude of what this has meant for rap, and maybe even how it stopped so many great albums from releasing that we don't even know about. And now, what's so clear with Drake and the situation he is in with Kendrick Lamar, while the labels kept him held back from Push 8, and so many other people who he has had a problem with seemingly for whatever reason. They did not do the same thing with Kendrick Lamar, and just like Pusha T told us in his GQ interview, he thinks that Drake is doing everything he is with this suit, because with the release of Not Like Us and everything that happened with Kendrick, this is exactly what happened in terms of that the labels did not block Kendrick's tracks and prevent it from being heard, within the same way that Drake's tracks have always been able to when he made a disc. And now, with us being in this state, where we have found out that the guy who was leading hip-hop for the worst before Kendrick came back out was literally censoring rap music, because he didn't like it. Well, I guess one end of things are starting to make sense of why the genre felt so stale, and maybe why the music was getting worse for a while, but again, hasn't taken Pusha years to talk about any of this, and literally for him to leave the major label system as a whole and become a free agent in a move that cost him 7 figures. I think there has to be so much more that we are yet to hear about when it comes to how Drake has controlled the industry for the worst, and shelled artists' entire works for whatever reason he may have had, and with this just being the conversation that we are having right now, as we now know that Drake has done this to one of the greatest rappers of all time and one of the most important MCs today. This is just bringing the future of hip-hop really to a more jarring area and is making us ask even more questions than ever, because who truly knows how much? Drake has been pulling behind the scenes, as he has so clearly been rigging the game like no other rapper has ever even come close to. And now, from here as this is all out there, and the people are going to get to see that Drake has been so petty and careless that literally all the way to the extent in the case of Pop M Smoke, he almost prevented everyone from hearing the record from him that actually ended up defining his career in a lot of ways. Well, I mean, what we are seeing, and there is no other way to put it, Drake has been willing to erase and censor key moments of hip-hop history, looking back on it all for his own benefit. And I mean, come on, there is no more hiding from the fact that this is the literal definition of a vulture and just the worst type of person you can be within a creative space as a whole. And to be honest, what's wild is that when we look back on Drake's beef with Kendrick, the more I think about all that, Drake was probably expecting the label to straight up block Kendrick from ever doing anything against him. And that's why he was so overly confident during the entire exchange, of course, until Kendrick just took over everything like we never saw. And now from here, as this clip's rollout out continues, and the lid is opened on how awful Drake has genuinely been, I'd imagine none of this is going to stop here, as everyone continues to react to all of this info and Drake's image is only going to slip more and more. But overall, well, I've said it before, but I've never meant it more than right now, because as Drake is literally trying to censor hip-hop and the art of expression in rap, he has never deserved more to get exposed and fail like this and just get humiliated by the entirety of hip-hop in the music world for doing so, and at this point, it is beyond redemption. Again, I will say it, and I will stand on this for as long as possible. If you are pro-Drake in any way possible, you are anti-hip-hop. And so now, with all of this said, let me know. What do you think about the absolutely maddening and disturbing things that Drake has just been exposed for? And what do you think this is all going to mean for the industry going forward? Now, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all of this and how this is really going to affect the future of rap music. And even this rollout with clips Kendrick Lamar and Pusha T. And now, if you made it to this point in the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. Now, if you want to see how, right before this, while the combined efforts of Kendrick Lamar and Pusha and everybody else who is helping this clip's record get out, well, with all of these names standing in the face of something that the industry so clearly wanted to hide, these guys have just started a feud with the label system that is literally going to change everything. Check out the suggested video.